My original Takagi-san analysis series saw 29 of the show's stories being analysed, that being every video in the playlist except for the trailer analysis and the 2 copyright-claimed manga analysis videos. However, this meant that over half of the 51 stories in Season 1 never got an analysis. While I ultimately stand by my decision to not dissect each individual story, there is still a large portion of Season 1 that I have not explored. This season I plan to do something a little different. If a story is not beefy enough to justify an entire analysis, then I will put it aside until I can collect enough of them to make a quick compilation video like this one. So welcome to the very first lightning analysis. I won't be going as in-depth with these stories, but they still have something to say, so I'm going to take a moment to hear them out. Just a heads up though, besides after school, I won't be analysing any of the B-plot stories. And even after school will likely wind up in a lightning analysis. Maybe towards the end of this analysis series, I'll analyse all the stories at once in some kind of mega analysis, but that's probably not going to happen unless enough of you in the comments wants to see it happen. So without further ado, let's begin this lightning analysis with Hypnotism, based on the manga's 63rd chapter and can be found in episode 1 from 8 minutes and 55 seconds. A part of this story that I love is when Nishikata initially gives up on trying to hypnotize Takagi and how she convinces him to try again. She could have appealed to his competitive side by making a game out of it, but instead she just smiles at him. And he gets this look like, how could I say no to that face? And I think that's really sweet. So this next point isn't exactly analysis, just a fun little fact, so if you'd rather skip it, I'll leave the time code below. Some of the show's viewers have asked how Takagi is able to fake being hypnotized, particularly in regards to what she is doing with her eyes. What she is doing here is contracting her pupils. Now, of course, we can't just contract our pupils at will, at least I can't. But what we can do is put our eyes into conditions where they will contract the pupils for us. It's likely that Takagi is focusing on something bright outside to the point where her vision needs to adjust its brightness. In order to make our vision darker, our pupils need to contract in order to block more light. And if any of you are interested, I actually tried to do an experiment to see if I could recreate this effect. This experiment went so terribly wrong, it has been relegated to the outtakes reel. Link below. The main point of Hypnotism, as far as I can tell, is that it pits 2 of Nishikata's character traits against each other so that we can see where his priorities lie. Making a hypnotized Takagi pick her nose lines up just fine with his motivation to win against her, but this suddenly goes into conflict with his genuine sense of care for her, and in the end, that care for Takagi beats his desire to defeat her. After it is revealed that Takagi wasn't really hypnotized, Nishikata seems genuinely remorseful for letting that power go to his head and immediately apologizes. The fact that Takagi deems his apology unnecessary gives us more insight into just how much she understands him. The next story on the docket is Ice, based on the manga's 46th chapter and can be found in episode 2 from the end of the OP. Do you know how Nishikata's initial reaction to Takagi's cold complaints is to offer her a hand warmer? Well, what that says to me is that Nishikata has gotten better at being around Takagi while his guard is down. I feel like throughout season 1 he was constantly on edge, but in this moment, as well as a few others throughout this series, he's seemingly just hanging out with her. It isn't until she challenges him to a game that he puts his guard up. When Nishikata asks if they can change the punishment, something that sticks out to me is the facial expression Takagi makes when she asks why. Remember what I said back in my swimsuit analysis? Another interesting part is that Takagi, to a certain extent, feels like she has gone too far in this story. She knows that Nishikata is easily embarrassed, so she likely doesn't mind putting him into situations that leave him a little flustered. However, when she finds out that Nakai feels embarrassed in this store, she figures out that Nishikata must really be doing it tough, and she realizes that she doesn't want him to suffer that much. Well, I feel like this look is a consequence of that revelation. That if Nishikata had been honest and said he was embarrassed to do it, that Takagi would have changed the punishment. But since he wasn't being honest with her, she just played him along for a little longer. I don't know, maybe it's to teach him that he should be honest about his embarrassment. I mean, maybe if he was honest about his embarrassment, bad things might not happen in the future, you know? I feel like the ultimate payoff for this story is that Nishikata actually goes to hold Takagi's hand before she reveals that she just wants the hand warmer he offered her earlier. She could have asked him for that hand warmer at any time, and she didn't have to trick him the way she did to get it. I believe Takagi's motivation in this interaction was to see if Nishikata would actually try to hold her hand, and judging by her jagged smile at the end, I'd say she's awfully pleased with the results. Last but not least, we get to Appearance, based on the manga's 74th chapter and can be found in episode 2 from 6 minutes and 15 seconds. Ultimately, this story is very superficial. What you see here is what you get. I could point out that Takagi knows the answer from the moment she is challenged by Nishikata, given the POV shot of his hand, but then again, I just did. And now I have nothing else to say on the matter. But there is one aspect that isn't shown at the surface and that only happens in the story's final moments. Takagi's punishment for Nishikata's loss is that she will challenge him to the same game again tomorrow. While this seems like poetic justice, it might actually have an ulterior purpose. I said way back in my Critical Hit Explained video that Takagi is slowly but surely molding Nishikata into an ideal partner. This challenge from Takagi could be a way to get Nishikata to take notice of her physical appearance in more detail. Now this following point is definitely a stretch, but at this point all my videos have had at least one stretch, so here we go. As far as her goal to get Nishikata to notice her in more detail goes, she might have succeeded. Perhaps it was this heightened awareness for how Takagi looks and acts that gave Nishikata the point of reference he needed to notice something was wrong in Worries. Like I said, a massive stretch, but I don't know, something to think about. And that's it for the video. So what do you think of this lightning analysis format? Let me know in the comments. A huge thanks to Orion Tran, my very first patron. If you would like to join this prestigious group or want to see the outtakes video for free, you can do so on my Patreon, link below. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.